To get to the throne room, he passes through a sort of palace of the Wizard of Oz, through a maze of marble corridors and chambers rich with mosaic and cloth of gold, through long lines of palace guards in white uniforms, through great crowds of patricians, bishops, senators, and all of this to the music of organs and church choirs, with eunuchs on either side of him holding him under the armpits. Until at last he enters the octagonal room where this silent, stiff, completely motionless figure is seated on an elevated throne veiled by purple fabrics, purple being the imperial color and forbidden to everybody else. The furniture of the room is very strange. There are golden lions, golden griffins, golden birds perched on golden trees, rather like a sort of glorified mechanical toy store gone wild. And all of this is set in motion by the chieftain's entrance. The animals open their mouths, the birds open their beaks and sing, the griffins whistle, the lions roar and thrash their tails, and meanwhile the visitor has to prostrate himself. And when he gets up, he cannot see either the emperor or the throne. Finally, he discovers that the throne has somehow risen way up, and the emperor is still sitting on it, stiff, painted, but now wearing another costume than the one he had apparently been wearing a moment before, and certainly too far away to hold a conversation. The man is not just impressed, he is befuddled. He is dominated by all this splendor. He agrees to fight for the Roman Christ and for the empire. He will be kept happy by presents, honors, subsidies. He may be given a Byzantine princess in marriage. He will certainly be sent a bishop who is subject to the Patriarch of Constantinople and who will sustain imperial interests. The Byzantines and their emperors understood well that diplomacy is cheaper than war, because when it works, your enemies do your fighting for you. And even when it doesn't work, it helps to buy time. But all of this needed money, a lot of money. In the 3rd century, remember, the imperial administration of the United Empire pretty much broke down. Inflation sent prices rocketing sky high, and the economy of the empire threatened to regress into a system of barter. But then in the 4th century, reform restored the value of money, and taxation was re-established, which could be used to keep up a bureaucratic government. This saved the East, but it couldn't save the West, which lapsed back into a barter economy under its barbarian rulers and grew weaker and weaker because it could not pay to protect itself. The eastern part of the empire, however, was safeguarded by firm administration and stable economy, which bolstered its diplomacy and enabled it to pay its soldiers with gold. The East's ability to tax enabled it to maintain a highly trained army and navy which could preserve the empire. War for Byzantium was a desperately serious business. So the Byzantines kept and developed strategies and practical improvements in a way that barbarians and later lords of the West cared little about. The Byzantines developed drill, they developed tactics, they also developed secret weapons like Greek fire, a petrol-based mixture rather like napalm that could be shot from ships and from battlements. It proved deadly against Arab and Slavonic fleets. And they did great things with small numbers. This medallion commemorates the triumph of Justinian's general Belisarius, who reconquered North Africa from the Vandals with about 15,000 men, and Italy with only about 8,000. By the 10th century, the grand total of Byzantine military forces was at most 140,000 men. But there was one institution that was even more important to the survival and the unity of the Byzantine Empire than the army, and that was the church we now call Greek Orthodox. Greek because Byzantium had been an ancient Greek city and its successor Constantinople inherited its Hellenistic traditions. Orthodox because it alone in its own eyes represented correct doctrine. The Church's faith became the bond that in large measure took the place of a common nationality. And its position in society was crucial to the state in ways that the Latin Church in Rome never was. In the United States, with our constitutional separation of church and state, it's sometimes hard to understand just how powerful a political force religious institutions can be. But in the Byzantine Empire, the church was one with the state, and it prospered when the empire prospered. Now that made it very different from the Latin Church, which never quite identified itself with the Roman state. At first, of course, it was persecuted, but even when it became the state religion, it tried to stay autonomous.